An absolute disaster of a loss for the Tennessee Titans against the Jacksonville Jaguars that highlighted everything that this team has wrong with it. That and more on today's edition of Locked On Titans.
You are Locked On Titans, your daily Tennessee Titans podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to the Locked On Titans podcast. I am your host, Tyler Rowland. Titans fans, today's edition of the Locked On Titans podcast is brought to you by PrizePicks. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL. Use the code LockedOnNFL, all lowercase, to win $50 instantly when you play $5. An absolute disaster of a loss for the Tennessee Titans, and namely Brian Callahan, a game that shows everything wrong for the Tennessee Titans right now, roster-wise also. And, I mean, at the end of the day, I called this a must-win for Brian Callahan, and I feel some very high levels of negativity coming out of this loss. It's kind of the exact opposite of the win against the Houston Texans. So we'll talk about all of that and the disappointment that I'm sure everyone's feeling. Before we do, thank you for making the Locked On Titans podcast your first listen each and every day. Remember, Monday through Friday, Tennessee Titans content all year round, always for free. Make sure that you get subscribed, stay subscribed. It's your team every day. But an outright disaster of a loss for the Tennessee Titans. And I called this, like I said, a must-win for Brian Callahan. And to me now, this is the exact opposite of the win that the Tennessee Titans got against the Houston Texans. You come out of that win on the road, divisional game, you're an underdog, you find a way to win, the offense scores over 30 points, and then this is the exact opposite. You're at home, you're favored to win. The offense does absolutely nothing and looks inept the entire time. The defense breaks down in the most critical moments of the game. Like, all of the confidence that the win against the Houston Texans would give you about what the Titans are doing going forward, and especially the coaching staff, feels completely erased by this loss. Like, those two cancel each other out entirely. Like, all of the confidence that I look back to that Texans game and say, okay, that's what it can look like. That's what it can be. This loss makes you feel like, oh, that's actually just a mirage. Like, it can't be that. There's this in there too. You just simply can't do this. You can't play at home coming off the loss that you had last week and how embarrassed you got to come home and play this way. And my big problem is, at the root of the issue that the Tennessee Titans had today, there's a lot of parts to it. We're going to get to the roster parts for sure. But look at the plans that the coaches brought to the game. Look at the plans. When was someone open against Jacksonville? It felt like the entire game Will Levis was waiting in the pocket, got some decent time part of the time, but he's just waiting in the pocket and there's no one there, and you got to check it down and get nothing. Or, you know, the run game would be good and be inconsistent as well. But for me, it's really the passing game. This Jacksonville Jaguars defense has not been good all year. They've given up huge plays, 20-yard plays all year long. And it felt like the Titans just absolutely could not get anybody open. And you have to watch the tape to know if Jacksonville's taken everything away. But then you got to adjust to that. You got to start finding people underneath and calling plays for people to get open underneath. It felt like the Titans didn't hit on what their plan was with the play all day long. Will Levis waiting in the pocket, looking around. You know, like, it's just crazy that Will Levis finally has time and we can't get anybody open. Nobody is schemed open. Nobody is wide open. And all you can do is wait, not get sacked, and then just take a quick check down that doesn't get yards. To me, Brian Callahan got out-coached today by Jacksonville's defense. He was not able to successfully scheme open players all day long. And I'll tell you, when teams run man coverage against the Titans, it's just the end of all things. The Titans aren't doing a good enough job of getting people open against man coverage on third and shorts. So whether it's downfield shots the Titans were looking at against zone on early downs that never came open, or whether it be third down and short plays where the Jags are playing man defense, Brian Callahan did not have a good enough plan against one of the worst defenses in the NFL to muster more than 6 points. That is unacceptable. So all of the confidence, again, that the Texans win gives you when you look at proof of concept and what it can be, this erases all of that in my mind because this was so devastatingly bad. And then you look at the defensive side of the ball, the Titans gave up 10 points. It's hard to be angry with the defense. But at the end of the day, they just let Jacksonville take over and over these little dinks and dunks, 5 yards, 6 yards, 7 yards. It was like watching last year's Titans defense or the defense the year before that, where the Titans are 10, 12 yards off the ball on 3rd and 4, 3rd and 5, and they're just giving Jacksonville easy catches. Now, Jacksonville's plan, I'm certain, was to attack over the middle and zone because they have Luke Gifford and Otis Reese out there at linebacker, which even if they had Kenneth Murray and Jerome Baker out there at linebacker, you could target over the middle with those quick passes because you know that your guys are going to sit down in zone and the linebackers aren't going to be good enough to challenge it. But I'm sorry, it's not a good enough game plan when you're just allowing them to take 5 or 6 yards at will every play. Like it was all game long that Jacksonville was just able to hit these little dink and dunkers. And that's what Mac Jones wants to do. Mac Jones doesn't have the arm to consistently drive the ball down the field. Mac Jones doesn't have the mobility to run around and extend plays constantly. He wants to get the ball out of his hands quick with the quick timing throws. And you just let him have it all game long. So again, this is an issue with Brian Callahan and only being able to have 6 points against this Jaguars defense at home with that game plan. It's unacceptable from the coaching staff. This is another game where I would say that the loss is primarily on the coaching staff. And we're like 3, 4 of those. I'm sure some of you would argue even more, but we're at 3 or 4 games where I'm like, the coach either had a terrible plan coming in, the coach didn't have the guys prepared and ready to play, the coach made a terrible decision with the lineup where he cost the team points because he played a hurt player. Like the team was completely outcoached the entire game, like the Green Bay game. Like there's at least 4 of these for me right now where the coaching is the primary issue with the team. And even though Brian Callahan is his first year as a play caller, first year head coach, Denard Wilson, first-year defensive coordinator, like they are going to take their lumps and they're going to have to get better. Like we should have all have expected that Brian Callahan would be better in year 2 and Denard Wilson could be better in year 2 than they would be immediately as a rookie. Like that's just any job when you start. But at the end of the day, it's not just rookie mistakes. It's not just, they'll grow from that. It's unacceptable situations. And then having a plan that doesn't even make sense, which is what we saw on offense and defense today. Neither of the game plans that the Titans coaching staffs had on either side of the ball, the plan that they had to win this game was a good plan. It literally fed into what the other team wanted. And that's the most disappointing thing about all of this. But again, it's more than just coaching. It goes to the roster as well. And the Titans' obvious roster issues showed up in a major way in this game. First, do want to let you guys know that today's episode is brought to you by Hillsdale College. Time is our most precious commodity, so don't waste it scrolling through the same mind-numbing content for hours and hours. How can you spend it wisely to improve yourself? Our sponsor, Hillsdale College, is offering more than 40 free, that's like free online courses, okay? Like Constitution 101, the meaning and history of the Constitution, Introduction to Free Market Economics, The Great American Story, A Land of Hope. All of Hillsdale's courses are self-paced, so you can start whenever, you can tune in wherever, plus you can go deeper with readings, quizzes, discussions, or just enjoy the lectures. Go right now to hillsdale.edu/lockedon to enroll. There's no cost. It's easy to get started. That's hillsdale.edu/lockedon to register, hillsdale.edu/lockedon. Today's episode is also brought to you by Prize Picks. If you love watching the game, you're going to love Prize Picks, the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy, whether it's football, basketball, doesn't matter, any of your favorite sports. You can find them on Prize Picks, and Prize Picks makes the holidays bigger and better. Now you can win up to 200 times your money on Prize Picks. Plus, this holiday season, they're giving away $30 million in rewards during Picksmas and offering 2 free picks in December. This week, you could look at Travis Kelce to get more than 70 receiving yards or Lamar Jackson to throw more than 250 yards. It's quick, simple, and so much fun to challenge myself and my friends. Download the Prize Picks app today and use the code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 instantly after your first $5 lineup. That's right, $50 instantly. when you play just $5. Prize Picks, run your game. Titans fans, let's continue this disaster loss recap edition of the Locked On Titans podcast. I mean, honestly, for me, again, just reiterating, to me, this is on coaching. Both game plans to allow Mac Jones to do what he does best and dink and dunk. On offense, Brian Callahan's inability to scheme anybody open all day long. Like, those two things together, this was not a capable game plan from either side of the ball, and that is 100% on coaching. And that may be the most discouraging thing, but trust me, there are other discouraging things from this loss, but they're just more obvious ones, and it's the problems with the roster. Number one, the pass rush. I mean, we could talk about the offensive side of the ball, and we will, but the pass rush is not good enough. I am looking at everyone who thinks the edge rusher is a crazy idea in the first round. Right now, with where the Titans are set to pick and what the draft class is looking at, edge is going to be one of the best positions the Titans can take because there's actual first-round talent at that position where the Titans are probably going to be at within this draft, which is high, obviously. As we can see, like, Harold Landry has regressed. And a lot of Harold Landry sacks at the beginning of the year, which is something I mentioned in my film room review of Harold Landry like a month and a half ago, was that a lot of Harold Landry sacks early in the year were cleanup sacks. They weren't where he was winning with a move, whether it be that speed bend rush that he usually wins with, or whether it be an inside counter, whether it be a spin, which Harold Landry doesn't really do. Rip club, whatever move. Harold Landry doesn't really win with pass rush moves. That's never been his game. He's always been a guy who wins with effort and wins with speed. Well, lately, Harold Landry's bend and his speed have just not been there. And you wonder if it's age compared with the ACL. Is he going to get back? That's a question. But you add that to Arden Key, who did get there once. The Titans got one sack on Mac Jones, and a lot of it is, like I mentioned earlier, just letting him dink and dunk and hit these short yardage passes with no contest whatsoever, which was a silly plan all along. I don't understand how that could be the plan. But again, the pass rush was just not getting it done. I don't think T'Vondre Sweat had a very good game. He has been an inconsistent pass rusher at best. Sebastian Joseph-Day has been a solid role player, but is he going to be one of your NASCAR package players where you literally have 4 rushers on there? Like, Jeffrey Simmons is getting double teamed. He's not doing quite enough either, but the problem is the talent there. The Titans just simply do not have enough pass rush talent, okay? It's just a point-blank period problem for him. And we've known that since coming into the season, that the pass rush needed more, and there needed to be more juice there, and the Titans didn't adequately do enough on the roster to address it. So, again, edge rusher, first round, makes absolute 100% sense for the Tennessee Titans. The value is going to be there. We'll have those discussions as we go along as to who those players are, but just the way it looks right now, I mean, the Titans pass rush it's been a problem all year long. It's been a problem all year long. I honestly think that Denard Wilson does a good job of getting the secondary ready to play. We've seen that with the players that he's had to use. He's going to get the secondary ready to play. If the Titans could just have some pass rush success, it would totally change what the defense is capable of, and they've already done a pretty decent job for most of the year. I mean, they broke down in critical moments, but they gave up 10 points. You give up 10 points in an NFL game, you should win the game. You should win the game. But, again, only getting one sack on Mac Jones, not getting a ton of pressure. It's a problem with the game plan, but the Titans desperately, desperately need pass rush help, and it is just so obvious out there on the field. And then you move to the offensive side of the ball. And look, we know the obvious problem with the offensive line and the blocking, but looking at the receivers, I continue to say, I like NWI. He should be a role player on this offense. But to be the Titans' number 2 wide receiver, he is their number 2 wide receiver again. Another year where through some way or the other, bad planning, injury, whatever, NWI is your second wide receiver. And while he has made plays when open, a lot of his touchdown catches, he is open. He catches the ball. He gets open. Again, people are just going to freak out because they're so in love with what he's done this year. But there's a reason he's only had, 20-some catches, and he's got all the touchdowns. Like, he's just not a consistent player down to down. And you see it when the Titans play against teams who play man coverage. He has a hard time getting open against man coverage. All right, he can run fast in a straight line and get a good miles per hour on a long run. But the agility, the route running, he's just not a guy who should be your number 2 wide receiver. It could be your 3 or 4 different situations. That is exactly where he needs to be. Calvin Ridley did not do a good enough job in this game of getting open against man coverage. And then Tyler Boyd is 30 years old. He's never been, a guy who's an elite separator. He gets physical catches. He gets the little slivers you need. But again, the lack of explosiveness at wide receiver in this game was a major issue, which, again, Treylon Burks out for the season now. He's been a ghost since last offseason anyway. I wasn't worried about, what Treylon Burks could contribute here. I tried to say, I don't trust him, can't believe in him, and he probably won't play another game for the Tennessee Titans. The wide receiver lack of talent is glaring. It is a huge issue for them. They need a young, explosive wide receiver in the draft somewhere. They have to get it. They have to get it. Major needs. I know you're like, well, with pass rusher and then with wide receiver. Yeah. How can you get both? You know what I mean? It's a tough situation. And then, of course, we go to the offensive line. And I think we all know at this point that Nicholas Petit-Frere is not a good enough player. Okay. I think we all know that. But J.C. Latham getting beat with speed to the edge by Josh Hines-Allen, devastating. And when Will Levis gets slammed at the end of the first half there and driven into his shoulder, and I'm thinking, collarbone, is he done for the season? This is going to be a lifeless end of the year, which it may already. Will Levis played, and they scored 6 points against the Jags at home, so you could call it a lifeless season already. But with Nicholas Petit-Frere getting beat by a defensive back with speed, and then J.C. Latham getting beat multiple times by Josh Hines-Allen, man, they need, like, I have said all season when people have said, what if you draft a left tackle and move, J.C. Latham back to right tackle? And I've said, no, Latham's playing well. Let him stay there. The problems with speed rushes off the edge, let's keep an open mind. That's all I have to say. They definitely need another tackle, and they need to take the best possible tackle that they can get in free agency or the draft, if that's what they choose. I don't think that the tackles in this draft are really up the Titans' alley, quite honestly. So I expect free agency, but I'm just saying whatever you have to, if that includes moving J.C. Latham back to right tackle, whatever you think makes this offensive line as best as it can possibly be, they got to do that next year. So glaring issues with the pass rush, with the wide receiver talent, and with the offensive line. And that, along with the coaching issues in this game, make it not only depressing, but again, a disaster loss for the Tennessee Titans. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Get ready to tackle the final third of the NFL season with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of a game, you can check out the latest stats, you can view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. Again, you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. And I would make sure that you do not use the Titans for that $5 bet the rest of the season. That would be not the right way to get your $150 in bonus bets. Let's just say that. But make sure that you check out FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Titans fans, let's cap off this disaster loss recap edition of the Locked On Titans podcast. We talked about the coaching and how big of an issue it was in this game with the game plan coming in and the execution throughout. We talked about the clear roster issues that had everything to do with this loss. Like This loss fundamentally comes down to the four things that we've talked about so far. The coaching being a problem, pass rush, offensive line, wide receiver talent. Boom. The Titans' four biggest issues. And I would say that out of everything, honestly, Will Levis was kind of the least of the problems again. He wasn't good in this game. I'd say good. He wasn't great in this game. He was good. Missing Chikakonkwo on that fourth down, though. Whew. Hurts my soul. It hurts my soul. But, let's just be honest about the issues here and why this is such a disaster loss. Because I think the truth of the matter is, while the Titans have this coaching problem, this lack of pass rush, the lack of explosive talent at wide receiver, and the offensive line issues, while you have those four problems, there is no quarterback that can come in here and save this. So was Will Levis good? You could say that. It was okay. That's what I'll say. But with those four problems, coaching, pass rush, offensive line, wide receiver, with those four issues, is this roster good enough to win with anything? Because I look around and I look at the Cincinnati Bengals, and Joe Burrow is playing literally MVP level football. And the Bengals are 4-8 out of the playoffs. And I just, whether Levis played well, good, bad, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, everyone will fight over that. You guys fight over that. But what I see is a disaster on our hands because these four things are terrible. The coaching right now, the pass rush, the wide receivers, the offensive line. And to me, the five most important positions in the NFL are quarterback, wide receiver, offensive tackle, pass rusher, and cornerback. Those are the five most important. And where are the Titans good enough at any of those positions? One, cornerback. Right? So it's just like, I'm looking around at the game, and yeah, you can dissect and debate Will Levis's play. I thought he had one bad play on the day when he missed Chikakonkwo, but sadly, that's the biggest miss of the day. You know what I mean? It's like Will Levis had his worst play of the day on the biggest play of the day. I mean, what can you do about that? What can you do about that? But outside of quarterback play, again, the reason that this loss hurts so bad is not only just the reality of it, losing at home to Jacksonville. It's only scoring 6 points. Will Levis almost getting killed. Like, this was as deflating and depressing of a loss as possible, just on its nose. But when you get deeper into it and you realize what a message it shows and what a light it shines on how many problems there are with this team, it just makes you feel like, man, they're so far away. They're so far away. Coaching, offensive line, pass rush, explosive options at wide receiver. They're so far away. They need so much. And you know what's crazy about it is the misses in the first round. When you miss that many picks in the first round, when John Robinson went 0 for 0 for, when you miss that many picks in the first round, this is what happens. You do not have high-level talent at premium positions. You don't have it. And this is why people say you don't draft running backs if your team's not built. You don't draft tight ends if your team's not built. Because what tight end or running back could have helped the Tennessee Titans today? I thought the tight ends had a pretty decent day. Tony Pollard looked great, but it didn't matter because the important positions lack talent. Man, again, this loss, other than being a disaster in itself, is a disaster for the direction of this franchise. That is why this is a disaster loss. Not just because of what it is today, but what this means going forward. Because my confidence, and we haven't even got to talk about when Cole Anderson said early in the season, I just assumed guys would know what they were doing. Like, because the game came and everything, we don't even have time to get into that. That's what the special teams coach said. I assumed guys would know what to do. Then what are you here for? That's like a teacher saying, I assumed you would know the answers to this test, but we didn't cover it. What are we doing? So hearing Cole Anderson talk, every time I hear Cole Anderson talk, a little bit of faith in Brian Callahan leaves my body. Because how can you employ a person who not only is so terrible at his job, but also is so stupid that he says the dumbest thing to the media every single week and embarrasses himself and you and the franchise with what he says at the podium every week? So you have that happen on Thursday. And then these game plans. Again, Brian Callahan couldn't scheme somebody open to save his life. Will Levis actually had time a lot of the time. Early in the game, he had a ton of time. It was kind of weird. He had so much time. And nobody was open. They couldn't scheme anybody open, which means that the Jaguars' plan for the Titans was excellent. Excellent. Everything the Titans wanted to do, the Jags were ready for it. So, with the plan on offense being so bad, the plan on defense, the dink and dunk, allowing Mac Jones to do the only thing that he can do well, to dink and dunk and get the ball out of his hands quick, and just saying we're okay with that. For that to be the plan on defense, and then the Titans' plan on offense, and then losing this game the way that it went, and then to see that on the field, the biggest issues the Titans have and how big of issues they are, and knowing that there's no way to solve those problems quickly. You need to draft a high-level talented player as a pass rusher, as a wide receiver, as an offensive tackle. And the odds of doing that quick enough for this team to be good anytime soon are just so low. It's a disaster. The direction the franchise is heading right now, I am very on the fence with the amount of confidence that I have in it. Again, this loss is the inverse of the Texans win. Everything that the Texans win accomplished, this loss took away. Oh, man. I had so much faith that the Titans could put up a good effort against the Bengals because of the emotional ties and but I do not have that faith now. Do not have that faith now. This is a disaster, man. But anyways, got to dive into the tape of the most exciting football game of the year. Excited to do that, and I'll be back with you guys tomorrow to break it all down. If you're watching on YouTube, thumbs up on the chat. Tighten up in the chat. Thumbs up on the video. If you watch on YouTube, remember, you can always check out the podcast version of the show. If you listen to a podcast, remember, you can always check out the YouTube version of the show. Wherever you need me, I'm there. But as always, I am your host, Tyler Rowland, and this was Locked On Titans.